The drama begins with the voice of a little girl remembering her past. She says it was just an ordinary day, but suddenly her mother started yelling at her for no reason. Her mom was an alcoholic. She drank all the time and took out her anger by hitting the girl over anything. We see the little one quietly treating the wounds her own mother caused, in silence, as if it were something normal. In the middle of all that, the father comes in. The girl runs to him, desperate, begging him to stop her mother from hitting her again. She explains that her mom always mistreats her, especially when she's drunk. But he, with chilling coldness, tells her there's nothing he can do. He grabs her by the arm, pulls her out of the house, and already on the stairs of the building, stops, looks at his daughter, says, "Goodbye," and suddenly pushes his wife down the stairs. The girl runs out and sees her mother's body lying at the bottom of the stairs. In shock, she asks her father if he pushed her. He smiles and calmly lies to her. "No, sweetheart, she fell by herself. I know she's made your life impossible, but don't worry, I'll get you a new mom. One who's rich. You just have to do everything I say. And don't go falling down the stairs like she did." He smiles, and the girl just looks at him in silence before walking over to her wounded mother. The mother is still alive, barely. She begs her daughter to call an ambulance, to help her before she dies. But the girl, remembering all the hits, insults and humiliations, simply turns her back and walks away. The mother dies alone on those stairs. From that moment on, the girl learns that no one is going to save her, and that if she wants to survive, she'll have to become colder than everyone else. Years later, in the present, a luxury car pulls up in front of an important place, and a famous actress named Jean steps out. The same girl, now turned into a star. She's beautiful, elegant, and very famous, but inside she's completely broken. She sees people as tools, someone to use, manipulate, and throw away once they're no longer useful. She's charming on the outside, but calculating and cold on the inside. She hasn't killed anyone directly with her own hands, but she's already caused the deaths of 2 people indirectly. To understand how that abused little girl became one of the most well-known actresses in Korea, the story takes us back several years, to her high school days. At school, Jean is an apparently normal student, but very smart. One day, during class, the students celebrate a teacher's birthday. Everything seems cheerful until, suddenly, a furious student storms in, crosses the classroom and slaps the teacher in front of everyone. Then she shows compromising photos of her, and those images go viral online. The teacher loses her job, she's investigated, and the parents start looking at her with contempt. Later, it's revealed that all of this was Jin's doing. She prepared that evidence and the scandal as a twisted birthday present. She walks up to the teacher and says with an icy smile, "Happy birthday. Did you like your gift? You always say I don't have parents, so I could only give you something within my reach." The teacher is in shock, unable to understand how a student could destroy her life in a matter of hours. In the middle of this chaos, Xia appears, the #1 student in the school, the classic perfect girl. Rich, studious, with influential parents. But that day she finds out she's no longer in first place. Now Jean is above her thanks to an art exam. Xia is furious. She remembers seeing Jean alone with the art teacher and starts to suspect something strange happened. From then on, Xia tries to get close to Jean, as if she wanted to be her friend. But Jean looks at her with that weird smile, calm on the outside, dangerous on the inside. Xia realizes Jean is not as innocent as she seems, and that behind that pretty face there's something much darker. At a school ceremony they announce the outstanding students. Jean is recognized for ranking #1, and a boy named Huang, who is sometimes called Hang in the recap, wins a writing contest. The school also announces an important competition and chooses Huang and Xia to represent them. But Huang, to everyone's surprise, gives his spot to Jean. That humiliates Xia even more, and she's not willing to lose anything to this mysterious orphan. At home, Xia complains to her mother, who reassures her by saying she can fix everything as always, bribing teachers, just like she used to do with the teacher now caught in the scandal. Xia asks if Jean gets private lessons, because she's strangely good. Her mother clarifies that no, Jean is an orphan and her parents are dead, so she can forget about expensive tutoring. And instead of feeling sorry, Xia is pleased. Someone without money shouldn't be beating her. Meanwhile, Huang meets with Jean. He seems to feel attracted to her, but he also carries his own traumas. In his mind appears the memory of someone drowning while screaming his name. Jean asks to borrow a book and finds a letter inside. It's a confession from Xia, where she tells Huang she likes him and thinks they'd make a good couple. She asks if he feels the same. Huang, uncomfortable, tells Jean to ignore that letter. Jean quietly keeps it. The next day, a rumor explodes across the school. Everyone finds out Jean is an orphan. The one who spreads this information is Xia, convinced this will humiliate her. Because of the pressure from the other parents, the school decides to expel Jean from the competition. They say the school's image is important and that some parents don't want a problematic orphan representing them. Xia shows up with her parents, proud of what she's achieved. Huang sees Jean sitting calmly, but inside she remembers her mother's blows, her father's indifference, everything that scarred her. Xia approaches with fake sympathy and says she heard they kicked her out of the competition, that it's so unfair. Jean simply looks at her and stabs back. She returns the letter and tells her that Huang asked her to deliver it, along with an added message. I can't stand someone like you. Nobody could love a person like that. Stop being so pathetic. Those words were not written by Huang. They were written by Jean over the original letter. Xia is devastated. But the real fall is only beginning. Another scandal explodes on social media. It's discovered that several parents were bribing teachers to benefit their children. As a result, the entire school is disqualified from the competition. Xia, furious, is sure Jean is behind it and promises to destroy her. While Xia is losing her mind, Jean walks up to a boy named Kim, a troubled student who steals things and lives with a violent father. Jean discovered long ago that Kim was stealing, and instead of turning him in, she made him her accomplice. Together they set up a loan shark business for other students. Kim gets his hands dirty, Jean keeps most of the money, and in his phone he has her saved as boss. One day, a teacher sees them talking and Kim runs away. As he flees, he drops a notebook where the whole business is written down. Xia finds Kim's phone, sees the messages with the boss, and starts connecting dots. She finds out he was caught for the loan scam and that the real leader is Jean. But once again, she has no solid proof yet. Jean, for her part, keeps pulling strings. She uses Kim, uses her classmates' secrets, manipulates teachers and destroys reputations so that hardly anyone can prove anything. Every scandal that breaks out seems like bad luck for others. But it's all perfectly planned by her. Xia, who at first was just an academic rival, becomes her first great victim. The public humiliation, the rumors, the traps. Jean doesn't just want to beat her, she wants to break her completely. And she succeeds. Xia ends up as the crazy girl in the class, the thief, the liar. The rich girl who thought she was untouchable ends up crushed in front of everyone. From that moment on, Jean understands that she now knows how to use people as weapons. And with every person who falls, she becomes colder. Through flashbacks we see how Jin's life has been since she was little. After her mother's death, her father pretends to be a devastated widower, crying at the police station, using his own daughter as a shield to gain sympathy. After the funeral, instead of taking care of the girl, he takes her to his lover's house. Jean asks if he's going to send her to an orphanage. He answers that they'll live there, but if the woman doesn't accept her, then yes, he'll dump her somewhere. That lover has a son, Huang. And that's how Jean and Huang meet, not as friends, but as pieces in a dirty trick. The new stepmother tries to act kind, but deep down she only cares about looking good in front of Huang's rich grandfather, the true owner of the money. To her, Jean is a nuisance. When Jean realizes that Huang looks more like the family driver than the grandfather, she discovers a secret. Huang's real father is not the grandfather, but the driver. She immediately understands this is a weapon. She confronts the stepmother and tells her that if she sends her to the orphanage, she will tell the grandfather the truth about the affair. That's where the blackmail begins. Jean has no intention of being abandoned again. The stepmother, desperate, tries to get rid of her another way. In a moment of madness, she tries to drown Jean in the bathroom, shoving her head into the water. Huang, as a child, sees it and is traumatized. Thanks to that scene, Jean incorporates an even more extreme side into her personality. When Huang is not around, her other self appears, the side he calls X, an even darker and more unhinged version. Over time, Jean is almost sold off by her own father, who argues with the stepmother over how much they could get for her. Huang, distraught, swears he will protect her and promises he will never abandon her. For Jean, that's the closest thing to a promise of love she has ever received. But it's also another chain. He wants to save her, she wants to survive, and their paths don't always point in the same direction. By senior year of high school, Huang works himself to the bone to help Jean. With his grandfather's financial support, he gets money so she can go to law school, fulfilling Jin's dream of finally escaping that circle of poverty and violence. However, her father reappears like a curse. He comes into her place, beats her mercilessly, steals all the tuition money and leaves her lying on the floor. There, while Jean can barely move, she remembers every time he betrayed her, how he killed her mother, how he used her all her life. Something in her breaks completely. At the same time, Hwang risks himself to protect her and hands over proof that Jin's father is a creep who films women in public bathrooms. Hwang's plan is to put him in prison for a while and get him away from her. But to Jin's eyes, that's not enough. She wants him gone forever. One day, everything blows up. The father goes up to Jin's apartment to demand more money. He hits her again, humiliates her, threatens to sell her. Jin secretly calls Choi, the former baseball player who now owns a cafe where she works and who has always been protective of her. Choi arrives and finds a man in a cap, the same cap Jin uses to pretend there's a stalker, beating her non-stop. Believing he's the stalker who's been bothering Jin, Choi jumps in to defend her. In the chaos, Jin's father stabs him. Choi reacts with the baseball bat and hits him on the head. The father falls to the floor, gravely injured. Choi panics and runs out. Shortly after, Hwang arrives, sees the body on the floor and Jin in pieces. The police are called and, when everything seems to point to an accident in self-defense, the truth comes out. But only for us as viewers. In reality, Jin sees that her father is still alive, agonizing. He reaches out his hand and asks for help, but she pushes it away. She tells him this is his sentence for ruining her childhood. And it is Jin who ends up killing him, finishing him off while no one is looking. Then she destroys the cap, erases evidence and arranges the scene so everything points to Choi. When the police investigate, she declares that Choi was the only one responsible. The detectives try to twist the case to pin it on her and squeeze a bribe out of Choi's family. But Jin, who isn't stupid, manages to record their corrupt conversations and uses that recording as a weapon. In the middle of the chaos, Hwang also sacrifices himself. He pleads guilty to being the stalker and admits to the police that he was the one who killed the father, even though it's not true. He repeats that he's willing to carry that guilt because he loves Jin and wants to protect her, even from herself. In the end, the police close the case officially blaming Choi for the father's death and leaving Jin free. Jin ends up under the protection of Seo, a powerful producer who sees her as a dark diamond, a girl with nothing to lose, ready to obey as long as they take her to the top. Seo cleans up her record, buries the case and sets one condition. If she wants to be famous, she has to cut all ties with Hwang. Jin agrees without much resistance. She's already decided she'll only keep the people who are useful to her. And Hwang, with his kindness, has become a danger to her. With Seo pulling the strings, Jin starts to shine as an actress. At the same time, she crosses paths with Jang, a hugely famous actor, much loved by the public, but carrying enormous guilt. In the past, he let his bandmates suffer an accident with poisoned food without warning him, and the guilt has haunted him ever since. Jin sees in him not just a man, but a ladder to a much higher level of fame. Knowing his guilt and family wounds thanks to Jang's grandmother's diaries which she secretly steals, Jin slowly worms her way into his life. She confronts him, understands him, pushes him, seduces him, and he falls. A complicated relationship forms between them. He loves her sincerely, she mixes a bit of real affection with a huge dose of interest and strategy. To solidify her position, Jin has to eliminate obstacles. One of them is Yuna, a veteran actress, jealous and cruel, who can't stand sharing the spotlight with someone younger. Yuna mistreats Jin on set, humiliates her, forces her to repeat icy scenes dozens of times, insults her for her evil gaze. Jin quietly puts up with it for a while, until she gets the perfect chance. With Kim's help, who is still in love with her, almost like a loyal little dog, Jin gets a video proving that Yuna was driving drunk and almost killed someone, and that she forced her assistant to take the legal blame. With that recording, Jin corners Yuna. She leaves her without a career, without a reputation, and without any way to defend herself. And in the process, she also gets rid of the assistant, because she considers her a risk. If she betrayed a boss once, she could betray her too. Jin isn't satisfied with winning. She likes to make it clear that no one can play with her without paying a high price. Eventually, the relationship between Jin and Jang becomes public. She decides not to hide, and instead of letting people see her as a homewrecker, she manipulates a journalist to turn it all into a perfect romantic story. The complicated actress and the star actor who fall in love in a pure and sincere way. The public buys the story and Jin consolidates herself even more as a leading figure. But, as always in her life, every victory comes with a shadow. While Jin rises, Kim watches her from prison on TV, crying with pride. After serving his sentence, Choi also sees her success and wonders what everything he did really meant to her. Hwang, on his side, becomes a successful writer, but his life still silently revolves around Jin. His book is called Partner in Crime, and it's inspired by their story together. When Hwang and Jin reunite after years, the tension is enormous. He never stopped loving her, she never stopped using him. He represents I always wanted to protect you. She represents, I will always use whoever I can to survive. They're like two planets that attract and destroy each other at the same time. Even so, Jean always keeps Huang close, even if only as a backup plan. She knows that if everything blows up, he'll be able to sacrifice everything for her. Huang knows it too, but he can't walk away. It's as if part of his identity were carrying the weight of who Jean is. When it seems Jean has it all, a new piece appears on the board. Moon, an extremely rich man, head of a powerful company and a key shareholder in the entertainment industry. His company donates money to charity and pretends to be humanitarian. But behind that facade there's another kind of monster. Moon has been watching Jean for a long time. He knows everything about her. Her childhood, her crimes, her scandals, her traumas. He is the one who sends Seo to prison and completely wipes Jin's record from the internet. Then he invites her to his palace, a huge mansion where he promises to turn her into someone untouchable, in exchange for her becoming his wife. Jean accepts, seeing in him a chance to fully shield herself. But once inside the mansion, she discovers unsettling things. A third floor locked with a key, employees who badmouth her behind her back, stories about an ex-wife who ended up crazy in a psychiatric hospital that, conveniently, is also owned by Moon. She starts having blackouts, strange scenes where she wakes up with no memory of what happened. She suffers panic attacks, sees images she doesn't know are real or manipulated. She realizes Moon is making her doubt her own mind, just as he did with his ex. He wants her unstable, dependent, controllable. To him, Jean is not a person, she's a beautiful doll that must obey. Kim and Huang, from the outside, try to figure out what's really going on with Moon. Kim investigates, infiltrates, steals information, and discovers that the previous wife disappeared, that the hospital is part of the game, and that Moon's men were the ones who nearly killed him before. Jean, for her part, starts waking up from the illusion. She realizes she didn't marry a savior, but someone as dark as her father, only with much more power. Desperate, Jean turns to Kim and asks him for help finding something she can use to bring Moon down. He, who has always wanted to be useful to her, accepts without thinking about his own life. He sets up cameras, prepares a plan to expose Moon's thugs, records conversations, until Moon himself orders them to kill him in front of the cameras as a warning. Kim decides to go through with it anyway. He leaves the recordings ready, activates the equipment, and when Moon's men chase him, he makes sure everything is captured. They beat him brutally and eventually throw him off the top of a building. Kim dies for someone who practically never loved him, but who did need solid proof. The recordings land in Jin's and Huang's hands. In them you can clearly hear Moon ordering the murder. Jean, far from drowning in guilt, sees this as a perfect tool. With that evidence, she can threaten Moon. If he doesn't obey her, that video will go public and his empire will fall. Moon realizes he has tied himself to someone more dangerous than he imagined. Huang, on the other hand, breaks down watching Kim's death. He accuses Jean of pushing him to that end, of treating people like they're disposable. She replies that Kim was happy dying for her, because that way he gave his life some use. That way of talking makes it clear that, even though she has deep wounds and part of her evil comes from pain, Jean has already crossed too many lines. Huang, exhausted, knows Jean is not going to change out of love or guilt. So he decides to do something she would never expect. Use her as the protagonist of his next story, but this time in front of the whole world. The big night arrives. Jean is nominated for Best Actress and the whole world admires her. While she walks into the event, impeccable, confident, ready to receive her prize, somewhere else Huang and a journalist prepare a documentary that will air live at the same time. That documentary tells the whole truth. That Jean is not just an actress with a difficult past, but someone who has used everyone around her as tools, not caring whether they lived or died. They show testimonies from people who knew her in high school. They talk about the disaster with Xia, the bribes, the ruined teacher, how she dragged Choi to prison, how she manipulated Kim, and above all, they reveal that it was she who actually killed her father, using others to bear the blame. They even play the voice of Huang's mother saying that with a criminal father and a dead mother, it was to be expected that Jean would end up like this. And finally, Huang's face appears, the boy who always loved her, declaring on camera that he was her partner in crime, and that now he refuses to cover for her any longer. While Jean is on stage with the statuette in her hand, the event's giant screen starts playing that documentary. She watches her life stripped bare in front of everyone. Her crimes, her betrayals, her victims. The audience, who minutes ago were applauding her, now look at her in horror. Jean falls apart inside, leaves the stage and runs out. Huang is waiting for her outside. They get into the car together. He asks her if she still plans to keep going, if she doesn't think it's enough already. He admits he tried to change her, but that it's impossible. And then, with disturbing calm, he suggests something, that they die together. At first she thinks he's joking, that it's another one of his dramatic exaggerations. But he's already made a decision. If he can't save her, at least he can put an end to everything. Hwang drives the car toward a cliff. Jin, used to controlling every situation, doesn't have the upper hand this time. The car goes over and explodes. Later, the news reports they found Hwang's body, but that Jin's body is nowhere to be seen. The truth is that, at the last second, Jin let go of his hand and jumped out of the car before it fell. Hwang died alone, while she clings to life once again, as she always has, surviving at the expense of others. The last scene shows her walking up to her own symbolic grave, looking at it and laughing as if it were a macabre joke. The world thinks she's dead, but she's still there, free, invisible, ready to start over, or to destroy even more people. And that's how the series ends, with Jin alive, Hwang dead, and the feeling that while she carries enormous traumas, each decision has turned her into a monster who no longer knows how to love or stop. Unhealed trauma can turn you into a copy of the damage that was done to you. Loving someone does not mean saving them at any cost. Sometimes, setting boundaries is the only way to do what's right. Your past may explain your wounds, but your responsibility begins with what you do with them. End of the drama.